Imagine stepping outside tonight and looking up, only to discover that half the sky is covered by enormous glowing rings. Not around Saturn, around Earth. From some places, they would stretch across the sky like a gigantic bridge. From others, they could appear as a brilliant band hovering near the horizon. Nighttime would never look the same again. But these rings wouldn't just make Earth more beautiful. They could change our nights, interfere with satellites, complicate space travel, and, depending on their size and orientation, even cast enormous shadows across parts of our planet. So what would actually happen if Earth suddenly had rings like Saturn? And more importantly, could we survive beneath them? Let's find out. First, we need to answer one question. How could Earth even get rings? Saturn's rings are made mostly of countless pieces of ice with some rocky material and dust, all orbiting the planet. For Earth to develop a dramatic ring system, something extraordinary would need to happen. One possibility involves an object such as a moon or asteroid getting too close to Earth. If it passed within a critical distance, Earth's gravity could potentially tear it apart. Instead of all that material immediately falling to the surface, some debris could remain in orbit, spreading around the planet and gradually forming a ring. In fact, scientists think ring systems around planets can change dramatically over time. They aren't necessarily permanent decorations. But let's imagine Earth somehow gained a spectacular ring system and it remained stable. The first thing we'd notice wouldn't require a telescope. We'd only have to look up. But those incredible rings wouldn't just decorate our sky. They would interact with sunlight. As Earth moved around the sun, the rings could cast enormous shadows across parts of the planet. And unlike the shadow of a passing cloud, these shadows could stretch across huge areas. Depending on the season, the angle of the sun, and the structure of the rings, some regions could receive less direct sunlight while sitting beneath a ring shadow. That could mean cooler conditions in affected areas. And if the rings were large and dense enough, they could potentially influence regional climate patterns. But other parts of Earth could experience something completely different. At night, sunlight reflecting from the rings could make the sky brighter than the one we know today. So Earth could have enormous shadows during certain periods, followed by nights illuminated by a spectacular ring system. Beautiful? Absolutely. But would you actually want to live beneath them? If Earth could have rings like this permanently, would you choose to keep them? Yes or no? Tell me why in the comments. Because what happens next could make you change your answer. The rings could become a nightmare for everything we send into space. And this is where Earth's beautiful rings could become a serious problem. Thousands of satellites currently orbit our planet, helping provide communication, navigation, weather observations, scientific research, and many other services we use every day. A massive ring system would add an enormous amount of material around Earth, but that doesn't mean every satellite would suddenly crash into the rings. Where the danger appeared would depend on exactly where the rings were located, how wide they were, and which orbits they occupied. Some useful satellite orbits could become much more difficult or potentially impossible to use safely if dense ring material crossed through them. Engineers might have to redesign satellite paths and carefully avoid dangerous regions filled with orbiting debris. And launching rockets could become more complicated too. Every spacecraft leaving Earth would need a carefully planned trajectory to avoid passing through dense sections of the rings. One wrong path through a region filled with fast-moving particles could be disastrous for a spacecraft. Humanity could still explore space, but getting there might become a much bigger engineering challenge. And if you're enjoying imagining this completely different Earth, hit the like button. It helps Earth Explain bring you more science scenarios like this. But there's another question we haven't answered. If Earth somehow gained rings, would they actually stay there forever? So, if Earth somehow gained these spectacular rings, would they stay above us forever? Probably not. Planetary rings are constantly changing. Individual particles within the rings would orbit Earth, but over extremely long periods, collisions, gravity, sunlight, and interactions with other objects could gradually alter the ring system. Some material could eventually fall toward Earth. Other material could spread into different orbits. And depending on how the rings formed and what they were made of, the system could become thinner and less spectacular with time. Our moon would make the situation even more interesting. Its gravity could influence ring particles over long timescales, while the rings themselves would exist deep inside the moon's much larger orbit. So the enormous, glowing structure that transformed humanity's sky might not be permanent at all. Imagine generations of humans watching Earth's rings slowly change, perhaps becoming thinner and fainter until the sky looked completely different again. We might eventually become the civilization that remembered when Earth once looked like Saturn. But before those rings disappeared, they could completely change the way humanity sees its own planet. And there's one final view we haven't seen yet. What would Earth actually look like from space? From the ground, Earth's rings would dominate our skies. But from space, our planet could look almost unrecognizable. Imagine approaching Earth from millions of kilometers away and seeing a brilliant ring system wrapped around the blue planet. Sunlight would reflect from countless particles, creating a sight unlike anything humans have ever seen around our home world. Astronauts looking back at Earth could see the rings stretching far beyond the planet's edges, and depending on their position, they might even see enormous ring shadows sweeping across Earth's clouds and oceans. Our planet would no longer look like the simple blue marble photographed by astronauts today. It could become one of the most visually spectacular worlds in the solar system. But after everything we've imagined, the incredible skies, brighter nights, giant shadows, and the challenges for spacecraft, there's one question left. Would Earth actually be better with rings? Maybe not, but it would certainly be a world none of us would ever forget. And if exploring impossible versions of our planet is your kind of thing, subscribe to Earth Explained, because our next journey gets even crazier. What if every animal in the ocean suddenly doubled in size? Sharks, whales, jellyfish, everything. What would happen to the oceans, and would humans still be safe in the water? That's where we're going next.